I had a Twitch debate with Dr. Spookalicious about the importance of the FNAF 1 posters. Audio issues prevented my mic from recording the first part, so I'll jump to the second part after we both make our opening statements. The FNAF 1 East Hall Corner posters are an evidence treasure trove that shows a great deal of planning went into FNAF's timeline. The missing children incident is in the 5-child poster, while the clue they are all stuffed into robots comes from the sanitation poster. That's well known. But we also find the origin of the shadows in the 2-child poster, where the security camera saw something different. The struggling restaurant poster dates Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, the site of Take Cake to the Children, long before Fredbear's because only one company owned it, while Henry and Williams' 2 companies collaborated at Fredbear's. The sanitation poster says blood and mucus kept coming from the eyes and mouths of the MCI robots days after the kids inside should have been dead, suggesting these kids were androids like Charlie in the novels instead of normal children. The more we study the FNAF 1 posters, the more we learn from them. These posters are from the game that started it all, and understanding them is vital to understanding FNAF itself.
Yes, I am Spook. Masculine or feminine pronouns apply. My YouTube channel is at Spook FNAF. You should all subscribe to it immediately. Many have said it incorrectly. I actually caught one of Rytost's streams, and I did a donation to hear him read out my name, and he got it wrong like I figured he would. God, I came up with the username Dr. Spookylicious probably in like 2017 now. It was like a crazy long time ago for me, and my thought process was that I wanted it to I wanted that one letter to be a bit confusing and like different from how you would think, because that's how names often are. Should I go first with my opening statement? The question at hand is, are the FNAF 1 newspapers, which respectively describe 2 and 5 children going missing, compatible with one another? Can they be describing the same event? My answer is yes. Your answer is no, for a number of reasons which do not pertain to the content of the newspapers themselves, as well as 2 primarily that do. The first being the difference between company mascot and cartoon mascot, and the latter being that in the 2-Kid newspaper, the police only think the suspect dressed in a mascot costume, and in the latter newspaper, they're sure of it. Do I have that right? I will acknowledge these discrepancies individually later on, but first let me give a brief account of what I believe these newspapers are trying to convey, starting with where this information comes from. Both newspapers use the words reported and reportedly to describe their findings, so these are based on witness reports which come at different times, hence why the investigation is ongoing, and hence why some details may change, like the number of victims and the certainty that a given tactic was used. In the first newspaper, video surveillance was used to identify a culprit, so this prompts the question of what the cameras actually saw. The cameras did not see 5 children, or even 2 children, enter the safe room. We know this because the children were reportedly missing, and whether these newspapers are referring to the FNAF 2 restaurant or the FNAF 1 restaurant, neither location has a camera pointed at the safe room. Not only that, but having a camera pointed at the safe room at all would go against the point of a safe room. So the cameras in no way caught the kids being lured there, so that must have come from witness reports, which again came at different times in the investigation. What I suspect the cameras saw was the employee in the mascot suit. I believe the spring Bonnie suit was used, so I would say parents told the police, hey, I saw an employee in the spring Bonnie suit lure my kid into a back room and they've been missing ever since. And what the cameras then identify is which employee was wearing the spring Bonnie suit and thus whoever is responsible. The cameras could also hypothetically witness Spring Bonnie entertaining the children who were reported missing before their disappearance, which would then corroborate the eyewitness reports, but that's speculation. That is the interpretation of the newspapers that I am defending.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh my god. Yeah. Okay, so I've been inaudible for this entire stream. I've been hearing you on Discord, but I'm new to this. I'm new to all this crap. Sorry about that, folks. We should probably rehash literally everything at this point.
To be fair, a great majority of it so far has been spent, haggling over the details of Go Go Go.
It is a major sticking point because I hold that it matches the. Tia, get away from the microphone. This is my cat. Hello. She's very loving, but she loves to destroy all of my equipment. And Tia, Well, that's just uncouth, isn't it? Okay.
So,
all right, where was I?
is there a detail in the newspapers that you think is it like incongruent with my beliefs about Go Go Go, as you understand them?
Well, we should probably like rehash the whole thing. What do I think that Foxy Go-Go must be the MCI? Well, there are 5 kids. As we've covered, like each kill event in FNAF, except there are a few repeat singles. But each one has the same. They haven't done audio before, so I'm doing this now. Has a different number of victims. Like they have 2 on June 24th. You have 3 screaming faces in the East Hall of FNAF 3. You have 5 MCI kids. You have 6 pools of blood and save them. You have I think I put it up over here. You have 9 kids in Help Wanted, and then you have the 8 tombstone, 9 in Security Breach, 8 tombstones in Help Wanted. Each time it's like a rule, it's like a number rule. The number keeps going up. And so we have number 5 is the MCI. Foxy Go-Go is about 5 kids. It's the secret room. It must be the FNAF 2 building because the FNAF 1 building, Pirates Cove, is on the west side of the massive dining hall, where if anything happened in the dining hall, it would be on camera, but the kids' fates are unknown because they were stuffed into robots in the off-camera secret room. And we know where the secret room of FNAF 1 is. It's way to the northeast. We see that in the minigames of FNAF 3. So it's what we see here, Foxy going 1 room to the east and finding the 5 MCI kids, could only happen at the FNAF 2 location and in this spot. So this has to be the FNAF 2 building. And it's in 1983, the first opening, because it's Pirates Cove instead of Kids Cove. And this is what we see here, even though everyone says like Spring Bonnie killed the 5 MCI kids. What the actual poster says, the 5-child poster, is that the person wearing the cartoon mascot suit was the one convicted of the crime. And once again, Spring Bonnie is not in the cartoon. Like we see Foxy taking that spot, the spot William Afton would usually have as Henry's and Fredbear in the cartoon. So Foxy is a cartoon mascot, while Spring Bonnie is only a company mascot. That's why the 2 different posters tell different things. Like the 2-child poster says that a company mascot was used, while the 5-child poster says a cartoon mascot was used. It's like the Foxy is a cartoon mascot. And the person who was wearing the suit is the one that is convicted of the crime. And so we see Foxy walking into a room of 5 dead kids. It's off camera, so there's no evidence that he didn't kill them. The bodies are never found, so he takes the suspect would be the one in Foxy, the one who took the fall. This is my model of what happened on the MCI. So the MCI had to be in this spot in 1987, the second opening. William was wearing Foxy, and the kids were stuffed in the same room they were killed, which had to be the back room. The 5-child poster says, like, it is the back room where the children die. So I don't see any way that Foxy Go-Go cannot be William's perspective of what happened on the MCI. It's like we have, the counts are different. We see that in the 2 kids, we see that William, without a suit, is stuffing a kid into Spring Bonnie. So Spring Bonnie is actually here in the 2-child event involving the 2 golden suits. And the 2-child poster says he was easily identified because he wasn't wearing a suit. It's like the 5-child poster says the person was wearing a cartoon mascot suit. How do they know this? Because the same camera recorded it. They saw Foxy enter the room. Whereas here in the 2-child incident, it's William. It's like, hello, I'm William Afton. I'm going to take a fall for murder. It's like, they discover him, and it's like they easily identify him, and so the police track him down. It's like, well, the video surveillance identified the man responsible and led to his capture the following morning, and this was never found. Okay. So the 2 accounts are different. One, William is not wearing a suit, consistent with this event. In the second one, the 5-child poster, William is wearing a suit and a cartoon mascot suit, which is consistent with what we see in Foxy Go-Go. So I'm arguing that it has to be airtight. Like there's only one 5-child incident. If there were two 5-child incidents, the second one, there wouldn't be enough robots to hide the second set of bodies, and it would be discovered, and it would instantly kill Freddy's. It's like, oh god, we do have a confirmed case of murder, so we got to shut this place down now. Instead, lingering health issues. Like they said, this is the second time that Freddy's has been cited for sanitation issues. The lingering health issues were what caused the end, not a second kill event. So it's the aftermath of the unresolved murders of the 5 kids that caused the end of MCI Freddy's. So there wasn't a second 5-child event. These are the same bodies. So that's my argument. That this must show the MCI. And it was in the back room of Freddy's and in the FNAF 2 building in 1983.
As much as I would absolutely love, like there's some sadomasochistic part of me that would love to spend the next 10 hours just talking about Go Go Go, because I honestly think we could. We have enough to say about it to last us that long. I think I better read out my
this is really important. This is really important evidence. It ties into the FNAF 1 posters. All this stuff was on the FNAF timeline when the first game launched. People keep telling me like it's all been edited, it's like it's all been inconsistent now. It's like, no, from everything I see, it's consistent from game 1 to game 9. It's these details just fitting together in a way that is not the popular interpretation.
So, but I think rather than, but like we can continue the Go 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 discussion specifically later, right. Like whether or not you understand my interpretation and whether or not there are flaws.
Well, why don't you? Okay, you present yours now that we have working audio. Now that this actually will be part of the VOD, why don't you do your case now?
So my interpretation of Go 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 is that it is in the FNAF 1 restaurant. And assuming that it is the MCI, just for the sake of argument, because I'm neutral on that, but if we just assume it is, then what happens is that the room just outside Pirate Cove, where the kids are, is just the dining hall. It's not any particularly special room. It's not where the kids die, because the grayscale, like versions of the sprites, there aren't any blood spots there. And they're in the exact same places as usual. They're not like slumped over bodies like we see in Save Them. So they're most likely ghosts rather than dead kids, because FNAF has used gray scale sprites to represent both in the past. I say they're probably ghosts. In which case, the room just outside Pirate Cove doesn't need to be where the kids died, and thus between round 2 and 3, it's entirely possible, and I think probable, that the kids were lured away to another location and then killed, and now in round 3 they're returning to watch Foxy perform. So
you do have a good point. There's no blood in the actual Foxy Go-Go map. It's like, that is rather curious. I talked that down to, like, the pools of blood show us that there were actually 6 victims in Save Them, so they had to be here. And Save Them was done by a different killer who was very overt, whereas the MCI was sneaky and surgical. So I'm thinking that's why we don't see massive pools of blood there. But you do have a point that we don't see pools of blood, so that is a point in favor of them being killed somewhere else.
So, yeah, and I believe the main objection that you had to that was just that, like, narratively speaking, you would hate for that to be true.
Well, it requires it's like you're creating, you see 3 events, like 3 times the kids go into the place where to find Foxy, and it has to be this place, which, not being on the map, would be a secret room. 5 times these kids that kept producing blood and mucus long after they were dead for some reason, gotta go to this place where customers are never supposed to go, which would indicate to me that these are actually family members instead of just random customers. Like, we actually see, like in FNAF 4, the bullies and the Golden Freddy, these are important characters in the game. They're not just random kids. So once again, like, this is in favor of there only being one set of 5 dead kids, and what happened to them is extremely important. And so you're saying, like, the third time Foxy goes into the room, he's expecting to find 5 live kids, but the kids have actually broken character and gone somewhere else. And in that other room that we don't see, they were killed. And then their ghosts came back. Well, it's like, well, if this is the one room in Freddy's where that is off camera, then so you're saying, like, this isn't the off camera back room because they were killed somewhere else. So the bodies are still there off camera, but it just seems Am I wrong about that? You're saying they were killed the third time they went somewhere else, were killed, and their ghosts came back to the same spots where they were standing other time, just because they wanted to?
Yeah, I wouldn't phrase it as they broke character and went somewhere else. I believe that they were lured there. And since you seem to be, like, reading these different rounds as, like, different days, let's just say that, like, this is like later in the day show, and the kids luring happens earlier that day. So if it's the same time every day, then this is just the state they were in because of something that they were doing earlier that day, which was being lured and kidnapped and killed. I wouldn't really characterize that as, like, breaking character, but yeah, sure. Their physical bodies are somewhere else during round 3, but their spirits are in Pirate Cove.
All right. Well, everything I see says that this room that's one screen due east of what Kids Cove was in 1983, this would have to be the secret room. So there is no other secret room at this location. The FNAF 1 location doesn't work because the secret room is far away from Pirates Cove, and Pirates Cove is, like, right next to... Okay, so you're saying it happened in the FNAF 1 location?
Yes. And if I may interject here, this is what I meant when I said toward the beginning of the stream that my goal here is not to change your mind on everything. My goal here is to justify my interpretation and get you to agree that my interpretation makes sense.
Okay, so you're saying it's in the... So walk me through it. It's in the... So they're killed over here, basically. Okay, so can you see are you watching the stream? Can you see where my cursor is?
I'm watching the stream now.
So you're saying, like, the Foxy, like, a Pirates Cove is over here, but the kids were actually killed over here, and their ghosts came back to the dining hall.
Yes. Earlier when you were talking about graphs and, like, visualizing evidence, I drew up this little artist rendition of what I think happens. Very, very simplistic. And I again, I don't expect you to change your mind on this. I do think that, if I'm remembering correctly, one of the main reasons you think that the MCI must have happened in FNAF 2 is so that you can have the safe room next to Pirate Cove, what would eventually become Kids Cove. But I don't expect you to suddenly believe that...
well, let's try to make this work. Let's try to make this work. Okay, you're putting the MCI in the FNAF 1 location, where Pirates Cove and the known location of the secret room is way the heck over here.
Yeah.
So you're just saying, like, there was just a huge fast forward when we go from one room to the next. It was like he just teleports, boom! It's like, and now he's over here.
I mean, I do believe that there is some amount of time skip between each round of Pirate Cove. You seem to believe earlier that they were on
walking from
days.
left room to right room. It's like we the player walk from left room to right room, and Tia's eyes are glowing. That's creepy. And they were suddenly instantly there, and you're saying, like, instead of just being like a few pixels, we actually, like, right all the way across the room, across the building, and now we're over here.
Oh no,
Even though the entrance to this secret room is actually to the south, though.
Again, you're misunderstanding
Okay.
what I'm saying. I believe that the ghosts are just outside Pirate Cove, but the bodies are in the safe room.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the
So the first two times, the kids are just in the dining hall, which is
yes.
really small for some reason, and the third time, Foxy comes out expecting to see the kids in the dining hall, but they're actually over here.
Um, it's not it, that's where the kids' bodies are, but
Okay.
their spirits are in Pirate Cove. And again,
Okay.
I clarified earlier, but it was back before we fixed the mic issues. I clarified earlier. I think the reason Foxy performs, even though there's not technically a set of kids the third time, is most likely because the pink guy, whoever he is, like programmed that to be the case or activated Foxy's show in that moment. Step Closer seems to imply that there's literally a button that activates Foxy's performance.
Well, remember the person convicted of the MCI, according to the FNAF 1 poster. We're talking about the posters today, and this is why
Yes.
this is super important. The person wearing the cartoon mascot suit was the one convicted of the crime.
Yes, and
So,
now that you seem to have, finally after years an understanding of what I've been saying about Go Go Go, I we can finally seem to move on to
but the pink guy isn't
the
wearing a suit.
we can move on to the cartoon company discrepancy.
Okay.
Um, and I again have a like preamble about that, with even some handy
Cool.
links included. Um,
Do your multimedia presentation then.
yes. Uh, there are two cartoons we know to exist in the FNAF universe: Freddy and Friends on Tour, and what we can assume to be its predecessor, Fredbear and Friends. And neither one features Fredbear's right-hand man, Spring Bonnie. Therefore, Spring Bonnie can't be the cartoon mascot the Five Kid newspaper refers to, because he wasn't in the cartoon. In fact, he's the only character not in the cartoon. That is your argument, right?
That's my observation based on FNAF 4.
First, we do not see all of the Fredbear and Friends cartoon. What we actually see is most likely the intro to the show or an ad, but either way, it's on loop. Given how repetitive the Forever and Ever is in Security Breach, maybe the Afton family's TV is just broken and keeps looping everything. Regardless, the possibility exists that Spring Bonnie appears in the cartoon on an episode we just don't see. It certainly wouldn't be the most out there thing that you believe. And if we determine that Spring Bonnie must be a cartoon mascot, then it would be a logical conclusion. That is, if there is only one definition of cartoon. Cartoons aren't just on TV. Cartoon is primarily an art style, drawn media. So my question is, has Spring Bonnie ever been drawn on something official by Fazbear Entertainment in a cartoon style? And the answer is yes. And these are the two images that I present.
Mm-hmm.
These are not cartoon TV shows, but they are cartoons.
So why did the two posters say one said the company mascot, and the issues like the two child poster matched what we see in FNAF 4, with William like not having a suit. Let's bring that back up. Like the William here doesn't have a suit. This matches what we see in the two child poster. And so we have and then we're talking about the 5 child poster, and we have Foxy here standing where William would usually be in Spring Bonnie.
You have completely brushed past the cartoon point. The Spring Bonnie isn't in the Fredbear and Friends cartoon. I brought up what I think is a good counter to that, and then you responded.
Well, I'm just wondering why the two posters changed the wordage. Like two child poster, a company mascot is used, which would be Spring Bonnie, even if he wasn't in the cartoon. And the 5 child poster, a cartoon mascot, specifically a cartoon mascot is used, which, based on what we've given as in-game canon, would have to be Foxy, because we don't have any other footage of Fredbear and Friends. And Spring Bonnie was not in the the teasers to Security Breach either. So,
But
whatever they called that, the van road trip thing.
do you still think that it is impossible for Spring Bonnie to be referred to as a cartoon mascot?
He would have to be in a cartoon, and you're saying this counts as him being in a cartoon. It's like, okay.
It doesn't specify a cartoon TV show. Cartoon is an art style, mostly.
Okay.
So
why did they specify a company mascot earlier? Aren't they all in the cartoon?
Okay, now I wanted to make sure that like we had an understanding of that.
Okay. You found a okay.
So why does there need to be a like great lore relevant reason for two different newspaper articles to describe the same thing in slightly different ways?
Because once again, there are discrepancies between the two posters. Let's bring them back up since we keep scrolling.
It would be a discrepancy if something being a cartoon mascot and something being a company mascot.
That is not the only discrepancy. This is one of several that we've gone on, and I'll bring them up again for the people who just arrived. We have the 2-child poster and the 5-child poster. Okay, 2-child poster says, "Camera saw person without suit." There are 2 kids. They theorize a company mascot was used. They theorize a company mascot, but they don't have that on camera, so they don't have it. They know it for sure. 5-child, like, man dressed as a cartoon mascot lured them into a back room. How did they know this? It was on camera. It's the same room, and it's a different number of kids, and the camera saw something different. So these are 2 different events, and the 2-child poster matches what we see in FNAF 4, with William stuffing the one of the kids into one of the 2 golden suits. Like this perfectly matches the account in the 2-child poster, while Foxy Go-Go perfectly matches with the caveat that the person who was wearing the cartoon mascot suit was the one convicted. It would be the one who discovered the kids first and could not prove his innocence because the event was not on camera. That matches William being in Foxy Go-Go. Like, this is William. Hi, I'm about to take the fall for the 5 dead kids because I discovered them first and can't prove I'm innocent. So this is consistent. Foxy Go-Go is consistent with the 5-child poster, while the 2-child poster is consistent with the FNAF 4 Easter egg. And once again, Spring Bonnie is definitely involved in the 2-child event, but no kid was stuffed into Spring Bonnie in the 5-child event. We have William and Foxy, and Golden Freddy would not exist as such unless Fredbear bit him. So we have a mysterious assailant, #Shadow Freddy, on the scene of the crime on the MCI. Where's Spring Bonnie? We don't have evidence that Spring Bonnie was ever at the MCI. So the question of Spring Bonnie is a company mascot who was not in the cartoon, while Foxy was in the cartoon and is a cartoon mascot. So it's a very subtle detail, but I'm saying this is consistent with tying this one to the 2-child and tying Foxy Go-Go to the 5-child. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But here's the thing. Like you said, there are a lot of things that you are arguing here are discrepancies. I'm taking it one at a time. I responded to one of them by asking, like, well, is it a technically discrepancy to refer to the same thing as 2 different words? And you went off about all the other discrepancies there are. That doesn't.
It's part of an overarching pattern made of several different pieces. It's like
Okay.
I'm just saying that in FNAF's minimalist style, any small deliberate change by the artist is something we should consider instead of just dismissing out of hand. And I'm showing here why that could be important. you're saying like, well, anything can be a cartoon mascot. It's like, here's Spring Bonnie. He's in a cartoon art style. It doesn't actually have to be in Fredbear and Friends. And I'm saying like Spring Bonnie's omission from the video footage of Fredbear and Friends, because we never see that, is important and consistent with what the posters say.
So
I'm saying it's relevant. You're saying like there's a way to work around it.
The question that I was originally trying to respond to was, why does it say cartoon in one and company in the other? The way I responded to that is that I think it would only be a discrepancy if cartoon and company were like contradictory adjectives, which they're not. It is possible for those two descriptors to be referring to the same suit, and I would argue that they both apply to Spring Bonnie.
Both are company mascots, certainly, but only Foxy was in an actual television cartoon.
This is, by the way, earlier, this is what I meant when I said that.
And you're changing the definition of what a cartoon mascot is by saying like there are pictures of him that are in a cartoon art style. So
this is what I was saying when I said earlier that there are some reasons that you believe the newspapers can't be the same event that are related to the newspapers, and some reasons that aren't. If we were having this discussion immediately after FNAF 1 came out, and we didn't have anything else, all we could discuss was the newspapers, then Fredbear and Friends wouldn't even come into it. So that's what I meant when I said that.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the purple Easter egg in FNAF 4. We wouldn't have learning more about the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, which comes out in like FNAF 6 and Security Breach. It's like this is a place existed before before a Fazbear Entertainment got a hold of Freddy's. And they did things differently. So
in the Great Spring Suit debate, which is also on your channel, I got you to say that FNAF 1 is, according to you, was not solvable when it came out. Like, a lot of the mysteries theorists wouldn't have the answers to for like nearly a year. So
these are pieces of a greater puzzle, and you do take FNAF 1 through 4 to put all of it together. 4 games, 1 story.
But for me, so what was the? So I would consider my answer to be sufficient to why do they use 2 different words, but I guess your real question there is, why was Spring Bonnie deliberately omitted from Fredbear and Friends when FNAF 4 came around?
I'm willing to admit that the change in wording is not in itself a proof. However, it does seem to be it does lean into the point I'm making that they are different events with different, where the camera saw different things. Like there's it's a cartoon mascot in the Five Child. It's like they don't saying like a guy in a suit. It's like they know exactly what suit it is. They're not theorizing about it. It's like they have this guy on camera.
Yeah, and again, I'm totally willing to go on these tangential discussions about Fredbear and Friends and Go 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 and these things, but my main question here and from the beginning has always been, are these 2 newspapers compatible with each other? Looking just at these 2, could they be describing the same event, just different stages of the investigation? So for that question, I would say that we've now come to an agreement on the cartoon company discrepancy, but you have like outside influences outside FNAF 1 in FNAF 4 that makes you believe that is true.
Well, how about this? Like we see this is consistent with a 2-child poster, and if these are the same, then fine, great. But this shows William fitting someone into Spring Bonnie, other than himself. Where is this in the MCI? There is no victim in the MCI who was stuffed into Spring Bonnie. So where's this guy?
So all the right, there's something you said earlier, probably like an hour ago now, that I meant to circle back to. the claim that to the according to the first newspaper, according to the Two Kid newspaper, William, or the suspect, was not wearing any costume. Is that what you believe?
Well, that's what it says. Like, video surveillance identified the man responsible and led to his capture the following morning. It's like they got the warrant immediately. It's like his face was on camera. The camera identified him, which means he wasn't wearing a fuzzy bear head or whatever.
If you recall my opening statement, in my interpretation, since the cameras, there most likely weren't any cameras pointed at the safe room, because that would, according to the phone guy, defeat the point of the safe room. How the cameras identified the man would most likely be through eyewitness reports saying, hey, this guy dressed as this character lured my children into this back room. And at first, 2 parents would come forward and say that, and then later 3 more would come forward to the police and say that about the same night.
But all 5 bodies were discovered together.
Hold on.
Okay, well, the bodies were never found,
yeah,
but...
Put a pin in that.
But it does seem like they died at the same time.
Okay. Yes,
so
but...
Why would 3 parents just forget their kids were there? Okay.
So, my interpretation on on whether on how they identified the suspect using the cameras was that based on those reports, they saw that employee or that character, and they saw which employee was dressed up as that character, and possibly even saw that character entertaining or walking away with those kids, but not necessarily them going into that back room. And then they would have been like, oh yeah, it's that guy. That employee was the one who was dressed as the character that was luring the kids around. And I think that is perfectly consistent with the newspapers, and it doesn't require that William or whoever was just in a regular employee outfit like we see in FNAF 4.
So where's this guy? Where's Spring Bonnie's kid victim?
Based on the height, that doesn't look like a kid.
Looks like a teenager. He's like 1.5 feet shorter than William.
I mean, I interpreted the Foxy bro in FNAF 4 as being about a teenager's age, because he's the heights in FNAF 4 are all messed up, because the bite victim is pretty darn short, and then the Foxy bro is about twice that height, it looks like, and then this person who in Spring Bonnie is between that height and William. One of my
you can put a kid in a Springlock suit. We saw that with Carlton in the novels. It's like you can just fit a kid in the torso and everything will be fine. So we have a maximum height for this guy, but not a minimum height. So he could actually be shorter. It could be Danny DeVito sitting in the mech suit or something.
Could be. Although I don't know why William would specifically design a Spring Bonnie suit to be significantly shorter than him. Wouldn't he want Spring Bonnie
aren't they adjustable? Don't they adjust to
maybe
whoever's wearing them so a kid can fit in there as can an adult?
Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. We have a maximum height for him, but not a minimum height. He could just be this tall.
But yeah, so the person in there, since I don't believe that the Two Child newspaper or any newspaper is referring to this event, I don't believe that this event needs to... I don't believe that it needs to be a murder, quite honestly. It could simply be, one employee helping another employee put on a costume. Or, if you don't like that, which I assume you don't, it could be a murder, but just not one that's mentioned in the FNAF 1 newspapers.
Well, it's my origin of Shadow Bonnie, so I think it's pretty important. And 2 kids, this does look like Sammy's slash Plushtrap Kid's FNAF 4 sprite, which would
Well,
mean that the other
here's
kid off camera in Fredbear would be his sister Charlie, turning her into Shadow Freddy. So
hypothetically, you could have a murder that takes place before the MCI, wherein William stuffs Charlie and Sammy into Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, and they become the Shadow animatronics. You could have that happen.
Mhm.
I've believed similar things in the past without believing that the Two Kid newspaper is referring to that.
Well,
Could just be
I
a
do
different
think that's how Shadow Freddy came to pilot Fredbear and bite Golden Freddy's kid on that day. It's like you need a pilot for a robot to enter one of the secret rooms. We've only seen two characters able to do that: the puppet and Shadow Freddy. Now, Shadow Freddy is a ghost who looks like Fredbear because they were died in and absorbed by Fredbear, which I think is happening just off camera during this event. So she already possessed Fredbear like a mech suit at the time the MCI happened, so I think she snuck in, did the deed, and then left, leaving one kid looking like Fredbear because Fredbear bit him. So that is my scenario, but if you can go on.
Yeah, so quite frankly, I don't like. I believe this purple guy cameo, or not specifically the purple guy cameo, but the other guy in the cameo, the Spring Bonnie. I believe it's called Spring Bonnie Man in the game files or something like that.
I don't recall a name, but
actually no, I think that was Glitch Trap in Help Wanted. He was called Spring Bonnie Man, and I liked that, like all one word, just Spring Bonnie Man, and I liked that. I liked the sound of that so much that I used that to refer to that guy and like other appearances of Spring Bonnie.
It's the same hairstyle, virtually identical hair color.
And
these two have like several perfect RGB color matches, so they are definitely closer related than the crying child is to them. Like these two are like twins. This guy is related. They have the cowlick, but it's facing a different way. So I think these are a pair of twins. Same red color, the red bow we keep seeing on Henry's daughter. Same blue eye color, same skin color, same shoe color. And this would be Charlie with a toys dad made for her. So
my quest here is to discover is to get you to understand my interpretation of the FNAF 1 newspapers, such that either you agree they make sense, or you see something that's wrong with my interpretation that I didn't see before. So I would say, Charlie and Sammy or those kids, not particularly relevant to that. But did you see my most recent video? Because I talked about all those kids that you talked to in FNAF 4 in that minigame.
I haven't seen all of it.
Okay. Yeah. And I need to work on my next theory video still.
I'm working on my next one too.
I got all the way up to like voice recording it, and then I realized that I'd forgotten to write the ending, so I still need to do that.
It happens. I mean, I had my mic off for an hour and a half today, so.
Yeah, it was a 6-page script, which is longer than I usually do. Usually like 3 or 4 pages. I usually try to keep it below 3. But yeah, so in my belief of what happens in these newspapers, Spring Bonnie, or the killer is wearing a mascot that could be described as a cartoon or company, and the eyewitness reports from presumably the parents or a close family of the missing kids, they all say, "Hey, this like employee in the suit, where'd the kid away?" And then the cameras catch which employee exactly that is. So one of the questions you asked about that, which I haven't gotten around to answering yet, is why did only 2 of them come forward at first? Now, I would say why did only two of them come forward at first? It really is just dependent on their personalities, which is going to have some variability. Like if a bunch of people go missing at the same time, that doesn't necessarily reflect that they're all going to be reported missing at the same time, especially if these newspapers are like very soon after the incident. We don't know when the newspapers exactly were written, but if it's like the Two Kid newspaper is like about June 28th, like a couple of days after this happens, and only two of the families have come forward, as opposed to like maybe the Five Kid newspaper was written like a week after the incident, so like very early July, and then now 5 total families have come, and that seems to be the end of the witness reports. And yeah,
we should make an annotated list of all the discrepancies between these two posters, because we can make each one sound insignificant, but seeing all of them together might be a more convincing case.
Didn't you? Aren't there mostly just 2?
Well, let's make a list of them. First of all, different kid numbers. One says 2 kids are there. One says 2 kids are there. Then one says 5 kids are there. It's like 3 sets of parents just were stoned that day, I guess.
Well, but before
and security camera. Okay, well let's make a list here. You can pick them apart. But why don't we just keep this fresh in everyone's mind? Security camera footage shows uncostumed human in 2-child poster, but human wearing cartoon mascot in 5-child poster. Okay, so that's discrepancy 2. Company versus cartoon, we covered that. And then Quantum Spring Bonnie. It's like, we don't see evidence that he's involved in the MCI, but he's definitely involved in the 2-child event. There are 2 golden suits, so that would make sense.
So, is this your list?
That's what I've got currently.
From what you seem to be saying here about the quantity here, is that even if I did find perfectly reasonable explanations for each and every one of them, that would still not convince you.
Well, it's a jigsaw puzzle. You have to find a place where everything fits. It's like, okay, so you've company versus cartoon. You've said, well, okay, Spring Bonnie he doesn't specify a TV show, so technically you could also call him a cartoon. It's like, okay, that's fine. Different kid numbers. Well, okay, 3 sets of parents just didn't care that day, or
that's not what I said.
Well, what is your explanation for that exactly? If they're all there at the same time, why did only 2 come forward?
Like, I'm saying that probably all 5 came forward at slightly different times that were all still relatively soon after the event, but it's that the Two Kid newspaper, the newspaper wants to cover this as soon as they can. Mm-hmm. They get out there and they write this and publish it before the 3rd testimony. Even if all 5 testimonies were like relatively close together, they're still hurrying up this information.
But if okay, so you're saying I guess that might work. So that's the way of getting around that. So company versus cartoon, I did that. Spring Bonnie, it's like where is Spring Bonnie during the MCI? It's like Fredbear must have been at the site, because Golden Freddy wouldn't exist unless the kid was bitten by Fredbear. I've shown you, like, the person wearing the company mascot suit was the one who was convicted of the crime, and that would be William Afton wearing Foxy, walking into the 5 dead kids and not being able to prove he didn't kill them. And that would be then we do see in the 2-child poster, we do have Spring Bonnie, very much so. And in terms of like the origin of characters, we have the puppet's origin to be the one event on Take Cake to the Children. We have the the 5 characters were possessed by the MCI, and then you have 6 characters. You have if Sib Save Them might possess the 6 characters of that we see in FNAF 2. It's like you have Toy Bonnie, Toy Freddy, Toy Chica, BB, JJ, and Mangle. Those are 6. So kill events we've seen before explain the presence of every character except the shadows. The 2 shadows, which are very rare, very weird, very mysterious occurrences, that we first canonized in FNAF 2, have no origin that we can see unless it's June 26th, the 2 Child event. So like a conservation of characters, like they have to have an origin somewhere, they already exist by that point, and the 2 Child poster would do it. So perhaps I'm talking probabilities, perhaps I'm talking about feasibility of theories, but all these things working together make it very unlikely that Scott just showed us something that wasn't the MCI in Foxy Go-Go. I'm pretty sure that is the real one, from Williams' perspective.
At no point in this have I tried to argue that Foxy Go-Go is not the MCI. I've been accepting that it is as a premise this whole time.
You said it was in a different room. The kids' bodies were in a different room, and the ghosts just happened to come back to the very same positions.
If that, in your mind, means that it's not the MCI, then sure, I guess. But, so, yeah, you said a lot there. Looking through the list again, I've given you my account with evidence multiple times of what I think the security cameras detailed, and I don't think that it's an.
We know what the security camera said in the 2 Child poster. That is canon.
And I don't think that it's an uncostumed human. And I've given multiple reasons for that.
Well, then you're ignoring the poster clearly says, well, video surveillance identified the man responsible and then to his capture the following morning. How do you identify someone on camera unless you can see their face?
I've told you multiple times at this point what I think the security cameras saw.
We know what the security cameras saw. It's right here. This is canon. This is the puzzle piece. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So how can you say, well, we don't know for sure if he was wearing a suit or not? Yes. And the 2 Child event, we do know that for certain.
Repeat back to me what you think I've said about that.
Why don't you clear it up?
Okay. And listen this time. I think that the eyewitness reports were the thing that,
video surveillance. This is a camera recording.
Okay, hold on. I think that the whole kids went missing thing was due to eyewitness reports, and the eyewitness reports included what animatronic character it was that lured the kids away. The video surveillance would identify what employee that was. So perhaps, if it's not in a safe room, then it might be in like a parts and service area if William was changing into a different costume, or even if he just took his hat off for a second to breathe. That doesn't necessarily mean. Well,
the thing is, that is addressed in this poster also. We have 2 parts here. The police are certain that the camera identified the killer. It's like the guy's face is on camera. And then the second part is police think the suspect dressed as a company mascot suit. They do not have confirmation of this because this was done on camera. Police think the suspect dressed as a company mascot. This is they do not have this. This might be your whole hearsay thing from witnesses, but the top part was a video digital recording. This part is certain. This part is speculative.
Again, you are hearing my response to a certain argument and saying, oh, well, you haven't addressed this argument that I haven't made yet. So let me get to that then, because the third pre-written part here is about the police certainty discrepancy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is based on the statement, police think that the suspect dressed as a company mascot to earn the children's trust. However, there are two interpretations of this statement. Your interpretation is police know that the suspect earned the children's trust and think that they dressed as a company mascot to do so. But my interpretation is police know that the suspect...
Okay. I did not say that the first part of that, but go on.
Okay. Police know that the suspect dressed as a company mascot and think that he did so to earn the children's trust.
Police think that the suspect dressed as a company mascot to earn the children's trust. The two are combined. That both of them are in the speculative lower section.
But the word, like, grammatically speaking, the word think could apply. It could apply to both, or it could apply to either one individually.
If it was on camera, they would know. They do know up here.
In the pre-written section, I'm sick now. This debate is killing me. In the pre-written section, I give the example of the sentence, "I think he's doing that to mess with you." You could interpret that as, I know he's messing with you, and I think he's doing this to do so. Or, more likely what they mean, I know what he's doing, but I think the purpose is to mess with you. So, it could be, rephrased as police think the reason he dressed as a company mascot was to earn the children's trust, but they just didn't phrase it like that.
Well, we know there is a surveillance. The first poster says, we know there is a surveillance camera, and things on the surveillance cameras are known issues. In the 5-child poster, 5 children are now linked to the incident of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where a man dressed as a cartoon mascot lured them into a back room. This is stated as fact.
Yes.
So this would be on the camera.
Because it's later in the investigation. You didn't let me finish the pre-written section, by the way. Furthermore, the fact that both newspapers use the words reported and reportedly, and presumably these witness accounts are coming in at different times, the police's level of certainty about a given detail might increase with more eyewitness accounts corroborating one another.
But the part of him not wearing a suit is not an eyewitness account. It is a recorded. It is not subjective. This is a recording by the camera. Video surveillance identified the man responsible. They saw him going in there with the 2 kids. This is Mangel's room camera we saw that's on the east wall. It's like that's the one that picked up William and the 2 kids entering the secret room.
Okay, so if we agree that both newspapers indicate, do we agree that the cameras saw a costume both times?
They did not see it. The video camera itself was able to identify the man in the 2-child poster. You can't do that if you're wearing a fursuit.
I went over 5 minutes ago why that could be possible. Were you not listening?
You can't subjectify that, Barry. This is part of the evidence.
Yes, I agree. I've never denied that this is part of the evidence.
But you keep finding ways of fuzzying things, like the whole Spring Bonnie could be a cartoon mascot. It's over here. It didn't specify that, but I'm saying an answer has to satisfy all of these different things. The different kid number, the camera footage, company versus cartoon. Where is Spring Bonnie during both of these events? All of those have to fit. It's like you can't fuzzy all 4 of them.
I'm not fuzzying them, right? I just have a different reading of them.
Okay.
There are words. The words are the things that are factual, that are objective, that can't be changed.
Yes.
But interpretations of those words aren't necessarily set in stone. They're a bit more up to the person based on the other details that person might think are in the series. So,
how does a video camera identify a man if they can't see his face?
The 2 examples that I gave before were that he might have changed into a costume in a back room that did have a camera, like the backstage area in FNAF 1 or the parts and service in FNAF 2, or like he might have just taken a quick break and like taken his head off for a second to breathe. I think it describes Henry doing that in the Silveraz.
Great.
So
Well, wouldn't they be
that
certain of what suit he was wearing then? Why is the one
yeah,
issue set in stone, the other one is theorized? If we saw him
because
wearing the suit in the same thing, if it was just the head that was missing, it's like, oh, we know we used that.
because I believe that the word think is applying to the motivation and not the tactic. I gave an example of a sentence where the word think can be applied this way, and it makes grammatical sense.
Okay, you're saying that they're sure he used a company mascot suit and are then speculating about the cause. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. That is a possible reading.
Yeah, and that you can see why I'm a bit frustrated when you take like an interpretation of a sentence that isn't yours and say I'm trying to change the details or fuzzy the details. So I need to calm down a little bit. But so that I believe is the first three discrepancies on your list tackled, or at least acknowledged in a way where I have an explanation for them that you agree at least makes logical sense. So
where is Spring Bonnie during the MCI then?
I believe that
Spring Bonnie's victim kid. It's like not William. There's this kid isn't wearing it.
Well, the reason I'm like stuttering because I'm trying to think what your theory about this actually is.
Well, I'm saying Spring Bonnie is that we get one of the teasers for the Halloween for FNAF 4 was Spring Bonnie looking like a key. It's like Spring Bonnie is the key. And Spring Bonnie is why the difference between company or cartoon is important. It's like, where is Spring Bonnie during both of these posters? Well, this one, where a man is easily identified on camera, he's right here. One of the two kids is stuffed into Spring Bonnie. But in the 5-child, no kid is stuffed into Spring Bonnie during the MCI. This is a discrepancy. It does take some theorizing to get here, but where is Spring Bonnie during the MCI? If these are the same event, he must be here. Where is he?
I believe that the way we're supposed to figure out which suit the killer used is partially by that process of elimination, by the fact that Spring Bonnie is the only one a kid isn't stuffed into, because it would make sense that if the killer was using a suit to lure the kids in the back and then stuff them, that he would have to be using one that isn't one of the 5 that a kid gets stuffed into. And this is corroborated in FNAF 3 when the phone guy, in which tape is it? Tape 3 on night 4, I believe. Or no, it's not. Tape 4 on night 5, where he says, he warns employees not to invite customers into the safe room. Reminds everyone that the safe room is just for employees only. It's not a break room, and you shouldn't bring customers into here and out of the main show area. And also, by the way, don't touch the Spring Bonnie animatronic anymore. The fact that both of those had to be rolled into one tape heavily implies that somebody did both. Somebody touched the Spring Bonnie suit when they shouldn't have, and they also brought customers into the safe room. Well, I believe that the MCI.
Well, this also fits in the idea that Spring Bonnie is possessed, because no one should. The suit has been noticeably moved. No one should ever use this suit. This is before the rain started in FNAF 3. And one of the weird details of FNAF 3 is that Spring Bonnie is still in suit mode. To convert a robot from animatronic to suit mode, you have to apply a spring crank. You have to go, yeah, and arduously transform it. But William was able to directly dive into Spring Bonnie. Once again, it is barefront Spring Bonnie, which looks a lot like this guy. And somehow those spring locks, despite being rained on potentially for years, did not throw until 5 seconds after William put it on. And it's like that is not natural. It's almost like some ghost inside the suit was holding them open, waiting for William to go inside. And then after this, we have the whole Dark Springtrap thing. Let me get that up real quick.
Yeah,
Even after after FNAF 3, Dark Springtrap, which is somehow different from regular Springtrap, leaves the FNAF 3 building.
I'm actually on board with the idea that that Shadow Bonnie is possessing Spring Bonnie when William runs into him, and Shadow Bonnie might be responsible for the big old crunch there. That is fully, entirely possible. But what I'm talking about is the old phone guy tape. What event do you think is being described there when the Spring Bonnie animatronic is noticeably moved?
Well, that's the save them. That
save them. Okay. Interesting.
FNAF 2 is all about, FNAF 2 seems to all be about save them. It's like someone used a spare yellow suit to do the deed, and interestingly, bare front Spring Bonnie is not a complete suit. It's like it's missing details. Spring Bonnie is supposed to have a button, bow tie. This thing looks like it's not complete. It looks like one of the replacement suits they're talking about. And William himself gets stuffed into a suit that looks very much like that.
So why would Phone Guy also need to remind people not to bring customers into the safe room? Were customers brought into the safe room during Save Them?
Or here, let's finish this up right now. It's like the spare yellow suit. This looks like this would be the spare yellow suit that was still in suit mode when somehow magically still in suit mode when William put it on. And then after, like, Michael had to talk to William to get the sister location mission. So he saved William from Springtrap after FNAF 3. And then after FNAF 3, William left. But this isn't the same Springtrap. This is Shadow Bonnie now controls this thing, which then goes on to become Scrap Trap and I believe become Burn Trap later on. But William is in security breach as Dave. He's leaving messages for Gregory. He's doing other stuff behind. Michael can't find him anymore because William has moved. Well, the entity that was already in the suit before William got spring-trapped inside it now controls it. So Spring Bonnie was possessed before William put it on and remained possessed after William took it off. And I believe this guy, this teenage employee we see here, became Shadow Bonnie, who's doing all these things, which is consistent with Andrew from the Fazbear Fright books. Like, somehow Andrew got basically fused with William, with post-Springtrap William. And it says, you did something terrible to me that I can't remember, but I want revenge on this guy. And it all comes back to here. It's like William did stuff, Sammy/Andrew, into Spring Bonnie. There is a Spring Bonnie victim before William got spring-trapped. And this could be consistent with the scene here. So if there is one, then where is that Spring Bonnie victim kid during the MCI? There was a Spring Bonnie victim kid. But
so what you seem to be asking right now of me is where did Shadow Bonnie come from? Currently, I do not know. I do not have an answer to the Shadow animatronics that I'm satisfied with. The answer that I'm leaning most towards, but also have been leaning towards for a while now, is basically your explanation. There have been some somewhat compelling arguments for Sammy perhaps being in the games, if there was a hidden victim that was under our noses all along, in which case I would be a lot more willing to believe that Charlie and Sammy could be the shadows together. But as of right now, I don't know what their origin is. And frustratingly, whenever I ask other theorists, where did the shadows originate? They're just oh, they're just Agony. And I'm like, okay, but no, who's Agony? And they're like, exactly. Oh, just Agony creatures. And but that's not
good enough answer.
The Agony must have come from a human brain or a human soul or whatever, however it works in the FNAF. So I'm currently I'm rereading Through Frights with my girlfriend because they haven't read any of it. We just finished book 5, so The Man in Room 1280 and Epilogue 5 we just read, and the pieces are starting to come together. And I'm paying extra attention to every single clue that might help us, figure out how possession works, especially with the shadows and Eleanor and how all that might come together.
That's good.
So I'm cooking up some shadow theories, but as of right now, at the very least, I'm confident in saying that they're probably not the ones mentioned in the newspapers. My question to you, which you might have answered, but it might have gotten lost in your entire explanation to Save Them, which was, were there any customers being lured into the safe room during Save Them?
Oh no, because Save Them happens in the middle of it would be during business hours,
So-
like all over the whole place. It's like it's everywhere.
Why would the phone guy need to make one tape that says both don't move the Spring Bonnie animatronic and don't lure customers into the safe room? I'm talking about
Well,
this.
we don't know
Yeah,
exactly the time. I think the FNAF 3 tapes are recorded at different times, but those are two different tapes. Like the one tape says like don't talks about the safe room, and the only people who should really go to the safe room are people who are dying of spring lock failures. Like employees shouldn't go in there, customers should never go in there; they're forbidden. And then we have he says like a spare suit was involved in Save Them, which I think looks a lot like this guy. And I may have gotten off track there, but I did all that to establish that there is a Spring Bonnie victim kid.
Yeah.
And he's mad at William. If Andrew is an amalgam to him, then he's mad at William because William killed him, which is consistent with what we saw in FNAF 4. So where is he? Since this is consistent with the 2-child event, like William's not wearing a suit, they have 2 special suits before the MCI, and one of them they would be the 2 golden suits. Then if this is consistent with the 2-child event, then where is Spring Bonnie's victim kid during the 5-child if these are the same event? I'm trying to show you that they have to be different because Spring Bonnie is a key inconsistency between the two.
There could very well be a murder of like 2 children at the same time, or 2 individual murders, or like one of them might have been a spring lock failure. I'm currently, since I don't really have a coherent shadow theory right now, I'm also iffy on whether they needed to originate in the same way, because yes, they're both shadow animatronics, but if you look at their behavior and their depictions, they're actually quite different. Shadow Bonnie glitches a lot more. Shadow Freddy looks like an inverted version of Golden Freddy, where Shadow Bonnie doesn't look like an inverted version of anything. Like they sometimes appear as purple, they sometimes appear as black. Their behavior is actually somewhat inconsistent with each other. But yeah, what I've posted here is there is in fact one tape that mentions both the safe room and the Spring Bonnie being moved, which implies that one event caused Phone Guide to need to remind employees of both of those.
Okay, they're on the same call. Okay.
So, I would say that whatever event prompted one probably prompted the other to need to be said. And in my case, that's the MCI. For you, that might potentially be the 2-kid poster, but I don't know how your timeline would shake out with that.
Well, Fredbear had to bite Golden Freddy's kid, who was one of the 5 MCI kids. And we've seen like ghosts in FNAF resemble the robots that absorb them. Like the phantoms in FNAF 3 look like the robots they're absorbed into. They must be real because they mess with the real world electronics. And like in the game, in the story Coming Home, like a Crossy Chica's kid, even as a ghost, looks like a thundering robot, because when their souls are absorbed into the robots, they take that shape, and so you can tell which robot the ghost originated from just by looking at them. So Fredbear is at the scene of the crime of the MCI. So I
agree.
So what evidence is there that Spring Bonnie is even there?
I mean, I've already answered that question. I believe that we're meant to, yeah, we're meant to look at this as a process of elimination thing of, oh well, if there are 6 animatronics and 5 of them get kid stuffed into them during this event, the killer must have been wearing the one that didn't have the kid stuffed into it, which in this case is Spring Bonnie. But furthermore, in
well, there were 2 versions of Foxy. Like there were Mangle and Withered Foxy, and I believe
I don't think that anyone could be stuffed into or wear Mangle.
It looks like a broken Endo 2, but oh.
But yeah, so there's that process of elimination, and like the like and this tape, which implies that a luring of customers into the safe room and Spring Bonnie attack happened at the same time. And that's just how I think we're supposed to figure it out in FNAF 3. In all 3 Charlie novels, we see more and more of a link between Spring Bonnie and William, to the point where like if we hear William dressed up in one of the golden suits to kill some kids, the natural assumption is probably going to be that it's Spring Bonnie, just because that's his favorite, that's his persona, basically.
That's what he did. That's what he did in the Mirror Universe novels. Yes.
And then all the way in FNAF 6, I know that you're going to disagree with me here, but in Fruity Maze, we see Spring Bonnie like luring away Susie, and in the novels, this is one of the main MCI victims, and in Coming Home, Susie possesses regular old Chica and not specifically Toy Chica. I know you
actually,
think that
Susie's a different entity than classic Chica in Coming Home. Chica is her guardian. Like she wants to say, but Chica is like taking her away and such. It's
yeah.
Classic Chica is a different ghost. I would argue that Susie becomes Toy Chica, but that's a different version.
Yeah, you've argued in the games that Susie and all of the other kids whose names we see in gravestones at the end of FPS, that those are the Save Them victims instead.
There are 6 of them, and we've gone through the whole part where the number is different each time.
Yeah, most people, or most theorists, believe that those are the 5 MCI victims plus Charlotte in the background being the puppet. But in the case of it, like you mentioned Occam's razor earlier, and my mind immediately jumped to this topic, because I think we have different readings of Coming Home, but at least with the novels, the story matching up and that being a part of the regular MCI would definitely support that being the same in the other. So for me, that's how I view it. And yeah, you viewed it a different way. So that from my perspective is one of the best and newest pieces of evidence that Spring Bonnie was the suit used in the MCI.
Okay, I just want to go over something real quick, because this is something that I don't think many people are aware of, but I've always found incredibly fascinating. Shadow Freddy and Golden Freddy are based on the exact same version of Fredbear. Like, if damage is a fingerprint, the wires are in the very same place. It's like this wasn't... This has to be the same robot. And in FNAF 3, we actually see Shadow Freddy cameo in the office. Like in the developer files, this is Shadow Freddy. But what does it look like? You brighten it, it looks like FNAF 2 Golden Freddy. They're twins because both souls were absorbed into Fredbear and took the same shape because of that, but they couldn't possibly be more different in temperament. Shadow Freddy's eating souls left and right, and Golden Freddy's trying to save his friends. So one's your best friend, one's your worst enemy. Just wanted to make sure that's in the mind for people there.
Yeah. So I have... Would you say that I have answered the Quantum Spring Bonnie criticism?
Not to my satisfaction, but It's good to hear your take on it.
Yeah. So you provided a list of 4 discrepancies, and I believe that I've answered all of them. So would you say that just looking at the newspapers only, that they could hypothetically, in a vacuum, be describing the same event?
I know they're designed to look like they're the same event, but in a deliberately crafted mystery that's super sus. I There are so many differences between the two. And I've said like this would be perfect for the origin of the shadows if the two child event where William actually did kill 2 kids, which then tried to get revenge
Yeah.
by framing him for everything else, MCI and save them. Since we have a Shadow Bonnie and Save Them and Shadow Freddy in the MCI, both of which get blamed on William, it's like William's victims are trying to get him. That's my take on it. But um, I guess what I'm saying is that this makes a very tight pattern. It's like looking at a jigsaw puzzle where several pieces fit together in a nice clump. It's like it's hard for me to conceive that that isn't intended, but this is somehow just something I've made up instead of part of the actual solution of the puzzle. But I guess you could write that off as probability.
Yeah. I remember there was hold on, let me look it up. I might have a better metaphor than a jigsaw puzzle. Do you remember the Clinton Bob Dole crossword thing?
Not exactly.
So in the, I forget what year it was, but when Bill Clinton and it was 1996. Bill Clinton and Bob Dole were the 2 presidential candidates, and on the 5th of November there was a crossword wherein one of the clues was either Clinton elected or Bob Dole elected, and every single other clue that related to those letters could fit with either one. I found out about this, as I assume most people did, from Vsauce, because he talked about it in one of his videos. And so you could interpret, most of the, like, it's either yarn or yard, it's either bits or BIOS. So that's how I would prefer to look at a situation like this, not as a crossword puzzle where there's only one solution, but where if I think it, like, you might have come to the conclusion, oh, this is Clinton elected. This is saying that Bill Clinton is going to be elected. That's like the bias that the crossword has or something. And I might try to point out, actually, 41 down could be Ira, or it could be Bra. And then, but you would say, but that'd be Clibbenton elected, and that doesn't make any sense. And then I try and address like letter by letter, but you're just like, but no, all these letters fit together and say Clinton. That's how I'm looking at this.
Well, that puzzle was deliberately designed to have 2 solutions.
Yes,
and that was supposed to make a political point. It was like either candidate could be the winner, and
that's that. I would say I don't think that FNAF was designed with multiple solutions, but it's vague enough where you have come to a conclusion about the MCI that fits together. Mm-hmm. All of your theories corroborate your other theories, and they weave together nicely, as have I. I also have an explanation of many different details, and they all weave together nicely. And when I try and share one of my explanations to you, and vice versa, it's not compatible. It doesn't click, because it'd be like sharing one letter of that crossword. That's how I am.
So what's your overall model of FNAF then? In a nutshell, just
that's a loaded question. I would say that now the FNAF timeline is spanning like 100 years, probably.
FNAF 1 through 4.
So I would say that it's it all centers around the MCI from beginning to. I would probably skew it to FNAF 1 through 6. All of it is about the build up and execution and resolution to these 5 kids possessing these animatronics. And in that, there are several other possessions. There's an entire family history. There's several, controversies. There's business history. But at the end of the day, the FNAF 1 through 6, or like FNAF 6 felt like such a conclusive ending to the series, even though it didn't end up being such. It felt like that because we were finally getting a resolution to the plotline from the first game about these kids going missing and possessing these suits. And I believe you have said before that it's all a parable against the idea of revenge. That revenge doesn't solve anything; it only makes things worse. And I would pretty much agree with that. I think that there are multiple instances in the series of characters doing things out of vengeance and it not working out. The one you shouldn't have killed is a great example of that. Old Man Consequences, who is this framed as this like wise old sage, at least in my reading, is against the idea of Cassidy or Andrew or whoever getting their revenge, and that they should just move on and rest their own soul. Mm-hmm. And in my AU, I lean into that theme a bit more, I think. But I also have like a father-son theme going on in my AU, because there's also a lot of instances of father-son relationships in FNAF.
Well, mine in a nutshell is that the Afton family used to be united. Like at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place in 1972, like everyone was there. You see pictures in FNAF 6, which is a reopening of that building, that everyone's working together. Foxy's part of the band, but then there was a disagreement between William and his eldest son, and William decided he was younger son Michael, the character of Freddy. So Henry, who had Foxy, jealously left the family and made Fazbear Entertainment as a competitor, and then ended up buying out William's original company. And that's actually one of the posters. Like the which one is that?
It's the one that I think of the last one and you think of the first one.
Okay, yeah, it's the one company poster, the struggling restaurant poster. There we go. As usual, it's about finding which one it's in. It's Cove, West Hall, East Hall Corner. Okay. The struggling restaurant poster. All right. After a long struggle to stay open in business after the tragedy that took place many years ago, the first thing you notice there is like this place has been open for years, whereas the MCI location Save Them both closed shortly after their various events. And then Fredbear's was long gone by the time 1987 came by, even though it was the open sister location in 1983, so Fredbear's didn't last that long either. So this is a Freddy's that lasted for years after one bad incident. And so this is Take Cake to the Children in my timeline, and William owns the place. But after Take Cake, which I believe was actually caused by Henry, he wanted to, after the disagreement between the two families, William's side of the family started to shun Henry's side of the family. William programmed the puppet to make sure that Charlie stayed at the party, but Michael and the other kids locked her out, and Aftons get their immortality from their robots. The Springlocks join them together. Part of their soul flows into the robot like a backup copy of them. It helps them move on to their android forms, which are immortal, etc. So Henry saw that Michael was basically denying his daughter her immortality. So he tried to save her, much like Dr. Talbot tried to save Ronell in the Fazbear Fright books. He took part of her remnant, her soul, and put it into a locket, which is so much like a Harry Potter Horcrux that it hurts. But it turned out to be it turned into Eleanor. It turned out to be an inverted copy instead. But anyway, I think Henry took this remnant and made JJ, which is basically the game's version of Ella, while the puppet absorbed what was left of her, so you have the split soul of Henry's daughter. Then you get then William's outfit languishes for a few years. There's a lot to explain. Sorry if I went too far on the tangent there, but William's outfit languished for years after taking to the children, while Henry went off to the side and made Fazbear Entertainment as a big money-grubbing company. And made Fredbear, which is basically an anti-Freddy. He's an avatar of like corporate greed versus the friendly brown bear that's all about like fun and love and etc. And so Henry amassed a bunch of money, then came back into town just when William was about to go bankrupt. This is what we find here. Despite a years-long search for a buyer, companies seem unwilling to be associated with the company. So it's just Williams after robotics holding the fort in the original pizza place until Henry comes back and gets involved. You see that in the what is it, the sister location? Brain's starting to short circuit. The leaks poster. And it says, the leaks poster says that the person who financed the operation, who financed Circus Babies, was local. But William owned the place that was going bankrupt. So this money came from someone who was local, but it wasn't his.
Yeah.
So I think that's like what we see in the events of Sister Location when representatives of Fazbear Entertainment are grilling William about Baby's design, and William isn't being helpful. It's like this is when Fazbear Entertainment took over. Fazbear Entertainment took over, made Circus Baby's Pizza World, and then changed Baby's design into a killing machine, which ended up killing William's daughter.
Mm.
Well, so then we go forward to the Fredbears. Like both William Afton and Henry are on the stage together in a two-company association. So at Fredbears, the one company era is over. Two companies are now associating with each other, which wasn't possible before. So this early struggling Freddy's must be before Fredbears, years before Fredbears. And then in 1983, they open the FNAF 2 building. And that's when William decides to get revenge on Henry by stuffing his kids for what Henry's company did to his daughter, Elizabeth. So William tries to get revenge for Elizabeth by stuffing both of Henry's kids in the golden suits. Then, so the body count has gone from 1 to 2, but this is where we get the escalating revenge theme. Well, then the Shadows say, okay, we're going to get William now. We're going to frame him for these murders. So Shadow Freddy goes and bites Golden Freddy's kid in the MCI, kills the other ones also. So now we have like 5 dead kids there. Shadow Bonnie does the similar thing for Save Them, leaving pools of blood everywhere. So that's 6 victims there, all because of all trying to avenge their own murders. So now the innocent victims have become monsters, and now they're killing innocent people in this escalating cascade of revenge. And that's I think that's the Happiest Day is actually about placating Shadow Freddy, which is a version of Henry's daughter, because she's still mad about the birthday party she never got. And Michael was the one who denied her that. It's like Michael was the MC at that night. Freddy himself could have gone over there and opened the door, but he didn't do that. So not all the children got cake, so now she's causing all this mayhem and biting Michael twice, like a younger version of 1983 to become Golden Freddy, and then his older version, Jeremy, in FNAF in 1987. Their memories combined in FNAF 4 to make the impossible FNAF 4 bite that's at Fredbear's, even though both of them were at Freddy's. Or like the 5 anyway. All this mayhem only ends when Michael comes back to the FNAF 3 building, assembles the kids, and gives Charlie, or Shadow Freddy, Dark Charlie, the birthday party she never got. Then she finally stops all this mayhem, and then lets all the other kids go, and that's like the end of FNAF 1 through 4. It's a dysfunctional family about mad scientists. It's about an escalating typhoon of revenge. It's about a small family business place versus a horrible, soulless corporation. It's like Fredbear looks just like Freddy in construction, except for color, but they couldn't possibly be more different from each other. And then you have like Michael and William trying to sneak into Fazbear Entertainment under fake names to try to sabotage it from within, to try to free the kids' souls from the robots and in the mayhem, etc. And that's my... I'll admit it does sound complex, and this is where the whole Occam's razor argument you made is in there, but I say that this fits all the pieces of FNAF lore together, including taking all the FNAF 1 posters verbatim. So it's a complex explanation, but it's an explanation that works, that doesn't leave anything out. And and you see some of that here in the struggling restaurant poster. This must be the 1972 place that we see in FNAF 6, because that was a nice small little square building. It wasn't an elaborate floor plan like FNAF 1 or FNAF 2. And you see this place again in Security Breach. Like everything stems from what happened at this place long ago. The family got split. There was a disagreement that escalated, and now Henry's Phasma Entertainment is sucking souls while William is trying to find some way to fix everything and stop the carnage, while Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie are trying to make his life and Michael's a living hell. So a lot of stuff's happening.
Yeah, if we're talking like overall themes and story narratives, I would prefer to talk about my my AU, which I've been working on, which I think I've tuned a bit to my liking, to because if I get to control the universe, then I get to control different character motivations, and I think that I have as much motivation as possible for the MCI, because the way that I want to write William in my stories is that like, I don't want him to just be a killer who kills because he's a killer. Like, every time he kills either one person or a group of people, I want it to be justified. I want the audience to perhaps disagree with the decision, but nevertheless understand it. Like, they're with him on that journey. They're not just watching, a psychopath operate in a way that they could never understand.
A murder and a mystery needs a motive. It's like I'm not just going to accept that he's crazy and it's like whatever. It's like, no, there's got to be a reason. Kids are specifically being stuffed into robots, which is pretty darn difficult if they're not designed to already be worn.
It might just be my taste, but I prefer the smaller dominoes to lead up to the larger dominoes. So like the MCI is like, he's murdering 5 children and stuffing their bodies into animatronic suits. You don't just do that because you had a bad day. You don't go from not having killed anybody before to having killed 5 people on a whim. We see
a murder, but from his mind, he's giving them immortality. He's giving them a gift. That's my take on this.
And it's a bit different in my AU, but I don't like, even if Henry's daughter is first, which she isn't in my AU, but even if like we just have one killing first, that still needs to be like something that William does for a specific reason. So in my AU, the first person that William kills is actually his abusive father. And he does this while he's still living in England with his mother, immediately before fleeing the country and landing in Hurricane, Utah, where he would meet Henry for the first time. So that's spoilers, the ending to my first story in the AU. And I think that like that story is meant to serve the purpose of making that as justified of a decision as possible. It's getting the audience from, okay, William is this like kid growing up in this terrible family, to, oh my god, he just committed murder and then fled the country, but like, we're still there with him. And then the next murder is Andrew, who without getting into too much detail, I'm just gonna have him like severely injure by accident. So then it's a decision of like, oh, well, does this, like, should I just return the kid to his parents and ensure that this is what Freddy's is known for forever, and like have the spring-lock suits taken away because they're too dangerous and stuff like that? So instead it just like kills the kid. And then something similar to the Bite of 83 happens, where William's son is now injured due to a spring-lock suit, and this is the main part where revenge comes into play. William blames Henry for this because Henry created the Springlock suits. This is something that I also think is true in the games. My next theory video is going to be about what the first death in the timeline is. And in the order of deaths, I think that the Bite of 83 is actually pretty early. So I would say that a lot of what Henry does in the series, like the MCI and like killing, well, not Charlie's death actually, but like a lot of William's action in the series can be framed as revenge against Henry for creating the robot that killed his son, and that's what I've been advocating for.
Okay.
For a while.
Well, there are two things. I do agree with you about the early timeline about England. Like in a Midnight Motorist, all the cars are driving on the left side of the road, which is opposite from the United States. And then you have a William Afton is definitely the link between the two scenes. But this is people wondering how could there be like old time photos of Freddy's from like the early 1900s. Well, Kid William is actually the kid from Midnight Motorist who escaped an abusive household, like you said. I don't think he killed his dad because we see him leaving, probably for good there. But that's sure, you can go ahead and do that if you want. That would add edge to things. And he came to the U.S. and then he came to the U.S. as a kid, early 1900s. He grows up to be the grandfather of the Afton family in 1972. And I get 1972 because in FNAF 1, Phone Guy says that the robots are 20 years old at that point. And Game Theory's estimation of 1993 for the minimum wage is spot on, but I refine it just slightly because the FNAF 2 shows us that night 6 is actually Friday, and it's Friday the 13th specifically. And like the same days aren't the same numbers aren't the same days each year that do cycle. And so the closest year for Friday the 13th, which is on the checks for night 6, and even in FNAF 1 2 at Fazbear Entertainment, is 1992. And then it's like 11 13 1992 is a Friday the 13th, so I go by 1992, and then I put Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place 20 years before that, 1972. But anyway, back to Midnight Motorist. He leaves, he goes to the States. Then there is a detail about who created the Springlock suits. These are the unused fast facts from FNAF AR. I believe it says that the famous William Afton is the man responsible for the creation of the animatronics we all know and love. Some of the first animatronics built by William Afton featured claw mechanisms that were able to hide away items inside them. These are like the what's her name? I want to say Pig Patch, but it's like Rosie Porkchop from like the Fazbear Frights. She was a spring suit. So I've still argued that the classic animatronics were also spring suits. Like you see, Freddy's head is detachable, wearable, and you can get a ghost can transfer from the head into a person and back again by wearing the head. And we see this happens to all the animatronics in the Give Gifts of Life, because the first thing the puppet does, they don't die by Springlock failure. The puppet puts the animatronic heads on each of the kids as a way to like put their souls into the metal, and then return the heads to the robots. And now they're in the robots, etc. And well, the whole bodies go in, but it's just saying like the spring suits have detachable wearable heads, and you can't do that with a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic because they're basically they're metal shells with a couple mechanisms inside, and they're not designed to be worn. You throw somebody at the thing, they're going to bounce right off it. Only a spring suit could be both activated and worn, as Phone Guy warns people not to do after the multiple Springlock failure incidents. Like the classic animatronics should not be activated or worn, and only a spring suit can have both of those. So I think all the early animatronics that William designed were spring suits. So William created the spring suits. That's part of the mirror universe aspect. In the novels, Henry is Dr. Light. He's the awesome inventor. William is his jealous business guy sidekick. And who's Dr. Wily, he warps them into horrible things. But in the games, I believe William is Dr. Light and made the robots to give his family immortality. It's like, this is a gift. I'm trying to give everyone robotic immortality. And then Fazbear Entertainment comes by, And Henry's company has to ask William how Baby works because his robots are far more advanced than theirs are. He's the robot master in the game's timeline. And then Henry, the Dr. Wily of the games, warps the Williams creations into monsters that go to start devouring souls, beginning with his daughter. That's a that's my model for the games. So I think it's important to point out this does say that William made the early Springlock animatronics, not Henry.
Yeah. My brain has somewhat exited war mode. I feel like we finished the debate probably like 20 minutes ago, and we're just talking now.
You're saying it's in you. I'm still trying to solve the mystery here. So
I feel like I got out of this what I wanted to get out of this. Really, somewhat feels weird to say validation because I already felt like my interpretation was valid, but just your agreement on that some of what I believe makes sense, and
I take a literal interpretation of FNAF. It's like if it says 20 years out of the bath, robots are 20 years old in FNAF 1, that's when my benchmark for all of FNAF 4. I take it at face value. Not everyone does that, but I found by doing this, I've made some pretty amazing discoveries. So I've kept doing it.
You have an interpretation that big picture, everything weaves nicely into everything else. I have another such interpretation that has almost nothing in common. And so long as we can both acknowledge that, that's a pathway to healthy discourse. I will say, since the last debate, I haven't actually mentioned this, but my beliefs have gotten even further away from yours. I no longer believe that Michael is the bite victim as of last year, I think. I changed my stance on that, and I believe Michael's the older brother once again. I believe that the bite victim and Cassidy are both in Golden Freddy, as opposed to it just being the bite victim. And well, I believe before that he was named Cassidy at the time, and then was rebuilt as a robot named Michael. But I don't believe any of that.
Well, actually, I do agree that both a version of Michael and Cassidy, which I believe is a version of Henry's daughter, aka Shadow Freddy, are together in Fredbear. And also in FNAF 1 Freddy, since I believe a version of Charlie was stuffed into Freddy in the MCI, so a piece of her went into the robot too. That's why Freddy's ripping off his own head and such. So I agree with that part.
There's also the Midnight Motorist thing. I based the first story, half of it anyway. I based it on the theory that I had about Midnight Motorist that I now no longer believe in either. I believe that it is more so, in the 80s. I've found different explanations of the roads detail that while it's a give and take, because yes, absolutely, the explanation that requires the fewest assumptions for why the cars all drive on the left is that they're in England. But then for me, it's comparing that to the drawbacks of the theory, the assumptions that have to be made elsewhere in the minigame. Because yes, you're not really making any unnecessary assumptions about just the roads, but I had to make assumptions about maybe there's a robot there that left the footprints. William must have created something like Mangle-esque, to house maybe the spirit of some pet that he lost that maybe was ran over by his dad. And in order to explain everything in the minigame, I essentially had to write fan fiction for what was happening. So I decided it was probably best to just actually write a fan fiction about it.
Well, you assume that William is sinister when he says, your dog isn't dead, he's over here, come look.
Yeah.
But it could be that William is actually using his Springlock technology to put the soul of the dog into a robot dog.
Yeah, and
maybe
I believe
he's just being nice. It's that's another alternate interpretation, as you like to say.
Yeah, and I believe that for a long time. And still to this day, I really like how I managed to fit all those pieces together. But that also then requires the extra assumption that even though he was lying to kill Susie in the novel continuity, that he's not doing that in the games, and that just wasn't an assumption that I could really like communicate to other people well. So I felt that I didn't really understand it well myself.
Communication is hard. I know this better than
Yeah.
anyone. It's like,
So I mean, that's why I have these pre-written responses here. They're helpful for every debate, definitely. But yeah, I would say I've got nothing much else to say. But Spooderman here did ask a few questions
okay.
a while ago.
Let's take some questions from the audience. If you say you're in just a, are you up for that?
I think the only real questions were for you.
All right. Well, first, does anyone have questions? Which one is it? What did he say?
Spoodman here said, if Shadow Bonnie is controlling Springtrap post FNAF 3, then how is Afton in control in FFPS?
My take is that Sammy and William seem to be linked very, very closely. Like both of them, I believe the Midnight Motorist tells the story of both of them at various times. First of all, it's Kid William in England, way in the past. But I believe it also represents what happened to Sammy after the Magenta Man got home from Take Cake to the Children. It's like the association between Midnight Motorist and Take Cake to the Children are very strong. It's like it's later that night, it's still heavy raining. The car we drive home has a magenta aura on it, even if the yellow guy is the guy who comes out. Let's see if I can grab that real quick. Pretty sure I put that in here. Yeah, car with magenta aura. All the other ones have purple auras that are like heading the other way. And so I think that after Henry tried to save his daughter, quote unquote, used the silver knife, grabbed part of a remnant and ran, he decided to make sure both of his twins grew up together as robot kids. Now, we have, I believe that JJ is the version of Ella in the games. Here's a quick thing about that. They have a similar cheek color. And we covered earlier that Sammy and Charlie are a pair of twins, so BB and JJ would also be a pair of twins. And I believe this Midnight Motorist tells the origin of BB, that when Henry got home, he did the same thing to Sammy he did to Charlie. Went into the room, stabbed him with a silver knife, and then put his remnant into BB, which is basically Sammy's first closet form in the games. So the two would grow up together and remain twins. He did this again because he wanted to give he believed it was best for him. Mad scientist father wants to make sure that his kids are immortal. So this is a gift. It's like you have to think like a mad scientist of this stuff. But it's a Midnight Motorist. William and Sammy are heavily linked. Like you see that in, I believe Andrew is the version of Sammy in the Fazbear Fright books, and the two are literally together in Springtrap. It's like the Springlocks connect them together. Even after being extricated from Springtrap, Andrew/Sammy is still haunting William, the shadow kid that does all the things William himself gets blamed for. Story of his life. And you have that's because I believe like Sammy was one of William's victims. So the reason Andrew is so mad, Sammy/Andrew is mad at William, is that William did stuff him into Spring Bonnie on June 26th. And so the victim is then getting revenge on their killer. And Springtrap is a really interesting creature because both Sammy/Andrew and William are the victim and killer of each other. Like they're just caught together in this hate pretzel in the same robot. And they're both like a version of Shadow Bonnie. It's like the Sammy is traditional black Shadow Bonnie, but William is the like glitchy Shadow Bonnie from Glitch. It's like he's trapped in this box. He sees memories of all these other things from the past. And then BB, like the good version of Sammy, shows him how to get out to the same glitch at the top left. He falls down and he confronts the uniquely dark kid who's watching over his prison. which would be Shadow Bonnie, like the dark version of Sammy, gives him cake, and then gets free because now that his captor goes to happiest day, they forgive each other, and then Sammy helps his sister find rest by being there at happiest day so she can get the birthday party she never had, etc. And but it's like the Sammy and William are both in Midnight Motorist. They're both a version of Shadow Bonnie. They're both trapped together in Spring Bonnie. They're both the victim and killer of each other. They are very tangled up together to the point where you could almost say that Sammy is a version of William, like a negative agony version of William. And that, I think, is why, like, we covered Dark Springtrap earlier, how the Springtrap that leaves Fazbear's Fright is not canonically the same one. Like, it is in the character encyclopedia, this is Dark Springtrap, which is somehow canonically different than the Springtrap we saw before. This is Dark Springtrap, this thing we see leave in the cutscene. And the Funko Pop looks for all the world like this is Shadow Bonnie. So William left Springtrap, but Sammy is still here. And as a negative version of William, Sammy can replicate William's voice. So when they say, like, Scrap Trap is William Afton, it's like, I think he's a negative piece of William Afton, but not the entirety of the person. Like, Scrap Trap goes on to become Burn Trap and in Security Breach, while William is there as Dave. Like, Dave is left a message. I'll see if I can pull it up real quick. In the game, it's like, you should fire Dave, he sucks. William's once again using a fake name to infiltrate Fazbear Entertainment, like he's been doing this whole time. And so William as a human is out there. Here we go. Hi, Dave. Customer complaint, you should fire Dave, he sucks. And then someone very much like William left the message in the sister location room in Security Breach. What are the names of the two characters involved in the Mimic? You have Mr. Burroughs, and who's the other guy? Mr. Burroughs, the business guy, and then you have the genius inventor, who's the small business owner. I cannot remember what his name is, but
no clue.
In my models, the Mr. Burroughs is actually Henry. He's the head honcho of Fazbear Entertainment, and the other guy, Edwin Murray. Thank you. AKUS6, or is that, Murray would be my version of William. He's the guy who makes the amazing robots. He's the idea guy. He always gets, the big company is always smashing their foot in his face, etc. But yeah, I believe Murray is the version of William, and Burroughs is the version of Henry, which is flipped from most people think, but Charlie's novels are a mirror universe to the games, and that's one of the things that was flipped. So anyway, we have, before I get completely sidetracked, we have Sammy and William could be versions of each other. They're very closely related. You could basically say that Sammy/Andrew is Agony William, and this is fascinating. In the Fazbear Fright books, once you take all the toys that Andrew, like William is supposedly already gone through the portal, he's somewhere else, presumably hell. It's like, we don't know. I would argue otherwise, but when Jake takes all the toys that are infected with Andrew's remnant, he's put them in all these different things. When you mash them all together, that thing becomes Agony William. It's like, well, why is it Agony William? It's like, shouldn't it be Agony Andrew? Why do you combine pieces of this one kid and get another thing entirely? Well, unless Andrew was a version of William. So the Fazbear Fright books seem to confirm that, yes, the Andrew/Sammy and William are like versions of the same person, perhaps opposite versions. But to answer the original question, what was the verbatim original question?
Is why was William still in control of his own body if Spring Bonnie was possessed by Sammy? I think.
Might use a mental link between BB and Sammy when seen as literally mean they're linked. original one.
Yeah, this other
Oh, wait a
person.
minute. It's Spooderman. Wait, if Shadow Bonnie is controlling Springtrap post FNAF 3, then how is Afton in control? And Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator. This was answering that. That's like the Scrap Trap is controlled by Shadow Bonnie, which is Andrew, which is a negative version of William. So they can call him William Afton in the credits. I know about that, but it's not a lie. It's just that there's an aspect of William. It's not the grandfather William that everyone knows and loves. Like you basically see William's voice, the voice actor, appear 3 different times. Like you have the sister location interview where he's an English gentleman, and then you have Michael at the end of Sister Location, where it's the same voice actor, PJ Haywood, and but it's the same voice except with like a different less of an accent, more of a different personality. And then you have PG Haywood come back as Scraptrap, where he's a vaudeville villain. It's like, how could I resist a promise such as this? And it's like he's just chewing the scenery. It's like, did you know I'm evil? Yes, I'm evil. In case you didn't realize this, I am in fact evil. It's like same voice actor, presumably same character, but alien personality from the William we saw before. So this is a negative version of William. They can still call him William Afton. It's legitimate, but it's not the same William. And that's my answer. Sorry it took so long.
Yeah, I hope that 12-minute-ish answer was satisfactory.
You've put up with worse for me before, so you're a trooper.
So I feel like I'm, not particularly necessary for this anymore. Like I said, I got out of this what I hope to get out of this, and I'm happy for that. We can continue debating on. I believe there are still 2 lingering topics. There was more we could discuss about Go 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 if we wanted to, but there was also the question that I wrote down that never got addressed, which was, did all 5 MCI kids die at once? And I feel like taking a rest for now.
They're universe novels. Like in the novels, they were individual events spread over months, but in here, it does seem like all 5 are at once.
Like I said, that's a question we can delve into another time. It sucks that the first hour or so of the VOD isn't going to be worth much.
Yeah, my microphone wasn't active. We could hear each other over Discord, but not not people on Twitch. I'm new to all this and learning as I go.
I also want to do a video at some point delving into multiple different interpretations of the posters, and since I know you have a lot of opinions on them, as was just demonstrated, I offer that you could be a part of that.
Yeah, sure.
If you wanted to.
They're crucial to understanding the FNAF timeline. It's like you cannot cut FNAF 1 through 4 out of the equation. It's like this is a Rosetta Stone that establishes everything else. So, yeah, I'd be glad to collaborate on that.
All right. Well, and great. I'll be in touch in the Ferret Debates channel.
Well, does anyone have questions for you, though? Does anyone have questions for Spook?
Yes. And I might as well, plug my YouTube channel another time.
You can link it right down here.
Yeah.
You have the power. You have the technology.
I don't, because I don't have a Twitch account.
Oh, well, you can make it your different account than like YouTube channel.
Yeah, I don't feel like it. Just at Spook FNAF. Fairly simple.
We can actually put up. We can. Okay, we can. Let's see if I can put it over here.
It seems like there are 2 active chatters, and 3 other people who are probably asleep by now.
Mr. Delicious, let me link your last video, and I'll make sure to watch it this time. I'm sorry for
FNAF 4.
not.
No, that's
okay. Here it is. I will link it here. You are apparently undead. Is that right?
My character design is a skeleton, and has been for some time.
Okay.
But yeah. Bye, I guess.
Well, I'll try to answer AKU's questions. Okay. AKU, what question would you like me to answer? I'm sorry if I have trouble keeping track of all the narratives at once. But if you want to leave, okay, later, Spook. I don't know what I'm doing. Pushing buttons and hoping they work. Okay, I'm looking for a... Well, I have autism. It's hard for me to process several different streams of incoming information at once. I'm sorry if I let things languish for a while there. Okay, so what's a question? Somebody asked me a question, if you want to do that. Okay, here comes something. Jessica. Ah. Well, I actually have a lot to say about Jessica. She's apparently like a... when... Oh, that would be the part where I said Vanny became Jessica? Well, we can see that. I have a picture of that here. Yes, in the best ending to Security Breach, Jessica is what comes out of the door after Vanny takes off her mask. It's blurry because I had to zoom in extremely much, but it does seem like we talk about characters being opposites and versions of each other. Well, in the novels, Jessica and Charlie shared a dorm room, and they were basically opposite of each other there, because like they had a partition down the middle. Jessica's all like feminine, nice and neat, dressed to the nines, everything is in proper place, nothing at all is creepy. And then you go to Charlie's side of the room, it's creative chaos. It's like things are strewn everywhere, items are other items, wires are everywhere, everything is unkempt, clothes are thrown about. Charlie is like a very masculine person. And it's like the two are like, it's like the odd couple. They're living in the same space and trying to find some way to coexist. And I think that's more than just for comic effect. I think that Jessica may actually be a version of Charlie. And I think that I linked Vanny to Shadow Freddy, didn't I? Like what was it? Through this? Oh, it was also through the... Oh, I guess Spook left. Okay. Oh, there they are. And they love Twerp also. So it's when they got me into the band, and they're an awesome band. Appears I've been in this call for more than 3 minutes. Oh dear. Okay. Some of the most recent things, like they're talking about the website, like we see shadows, we hear screams. Let me get those up real quick. But there's like a green and a purple theme going on. Once again, trying to make sense of my red notes in different places. Okay. Here we go. Like we hear voices, we see shadows. Something weird is happening outside. Okay, whispering screams, shadows, and shadows. And you have like the one is the inversion of the other. Like the green one is saying we see shadows, like the purple is like a typical shadow color. And okay. I talked about how Dr. Talbot, what he did with Ronell, with his daughter, is like what Henry did with Charlie. So Dr. Talbot tried to save his daughter from potential death by taking some of her and then making a backup copy of her, which turned into the evil Eleanor. I believe this is a model for what happened, what Henry did to Charlie in the actual game story. Now, Eleanor, interestingly, turns into Jessica in the story Frail, in the first Pizzaplex book. it's like it's the same locket, but she's, instead of taking remnant from other people, she said she made a choice. Now she calls herself by a different name. She's using the silver shavings to heal kids. Like there's life energy in the silver, which is a common theme in FNAF. Like silver is great at absorbing remnant. And she where are all the links? She ends up turning into garbage, just like what happened to the girl in To Be Beautiful. What are all the indications that it's a reformed Eleanor? I have to reread the story and like come up with the category list, but basically, anti Eleanor becomes Jessica, and Jessica is an opposite version of Charlie in the novels. So I'm thinking that Jessica is like an anti Charlie, so that after the Princess Quest 3 ending, if what came out after Vanessa took off her mask was Jessica, then that would have been Charlie before. So I'm thinking of Vanessa as actually a version of Charlie. And like another YouTuber pointed out, like the fingernails are different. Like the Vanessa has the shadow purple fingernails, just like the purple shadowy voice talking here. Like we hear voice becoming screams, and the green one is saying, "I see shadows within shadows," and the whole Princess Quest thing is like she splits into positive and negative versions of herself. Like there's like a shadow princess. They both do puzzles together, and whenever the princess kills one of the shadow creatures, she gets a heart of herself back. That's really weird, unless they were parts of herself to begin with. It's like she's fighting in evil versions of herself. And the new protagonist that's coming out in the next version in Ruin uses, like Vanessa was in Help Wanted, uses Vanessa's Help Wanted mask, different from Vanny's mask, and she has green fingernails. So I'm thinking like Cassie is a version of Charlie. Like both Cassie and Vanessa are opposite versions of Charlie. Cassie will be a good version of Charlie, the green one, while Vanessa is the evil version of Charlie, the purple one. So Vanessa is basically a version of Shadow Freddy. So that's my take on it. I should probably write up a diagram of some sort, but I believe that Cassie will be a version of Charlie. What else did I miss? Okay, did I answer that to satisfaction? I think we actually saw, like in Ruin, someone did a screenshot where they actually see like Shadow Freddy's like grinning, glowing eyes and teeth in an image. It's like oh hi. So I'm pretty sure Shadow Freddy will take a more overt appearance in Ruin. Probably still lurking in the shadows like she always does, but like I've written for years that how she's the secret like main antagonist of FNAF. And she took control of Phasma Entertainment from her father until Henry finally took it back in FNAF 6. A lot of what I do is like it's about probabilities. It's about fitting the various pieces together in a way that seems to work thematically, logically, etc. And obviously, I don't have all the pieces yet. There's still. What do I not know about FNAF? Well, I don't know where L Chips is. It's there on the timeline somewhere. The Rockstar animatronics are probably from it, but I don't know if it's one of the openings. Where's my timeline? Put up my timeline image real quick. Not BFF files, the clip art. I have so many different folders. Okay, there's basically my timeline as it currently stands for the various locations in FNAF. You have June years long ago, kid William Afton goes to the United States, becomes a grandfather in 1972, opens Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, and then the which is the struggling restaurant we talked about earlier. Magenta Man Henry, specifically Phone Guy. It's third closet Henry. Like when Henry makes Fredbear's, he upgrades to his fourth closet form of Cassette Man. So Phone Guy and Henry are two different versions of him. But Henry leaves, goes makes Fazbear Entertainment, comes back, buys out the operation. Together they make Circus Babies. He reprograms Circus Baby into a monster who eats Elizabeth, green-eyed Elizabeth. Like green being good here again. They open Fredbear's, which I believe is reopened as the FNAF 1 building. My timeline speedrun video goes through all of this in thoroughness, if it does take some time. Then you have Summer 1983, the new Freddy's, Phone Guy's Freddy's opens up as the sister location to Fredbear's. The June 26th MCI happens. It closes. It reopens in 1987. The Mangle, Williams Foxy is now Mangle. Pirates Cove is now Kids Cove. Save Them happens. You have FNAF 1, which gets reopened to Chica's Party World, gets it reopened to FNAF 3. Anyway, El Chips could be one of the openings between FNAF 1 and FNAF 3, since they changed the whole floor plan, and we see the animatronics we see in the FNAF 3 cutscenes look different. They have a different number of buttons than in FNAF 1. So they could be an interim opening. Someone mentioned that the withered Chica looks like Rockstar Chica, has a wide beak that looks different from classic Chica, which is like a recent observation that's come to my attention. It's like the Williams used to be having nightmares about the nightmares are also based on them. Like the wide beak, like Nightmare Chica looks like the withered Chica, which looks like Rockstar Chica. It's like if William owns Chuck E. Cheese, then Henry owned a Rockstar Pizza Place, and would be the competitor that makes life a nightmare for William, and so it would make sense that he would have negative visions about those knockoffs of his own robots that became more successful. What else? My brain energy is starting to get sapped, but basically, if you want to know everything I know about FNAF, there's one video that 95% of it all is in. It's like my timeline speedrun video, which I actually linked in the Twitch stuff here.
Enough. Or robots with the souls of your family members trapped in...
This one right here. This will explain my whole timeline and the story, like in one sitting. I think it's 82 minutes long. That's shorter than that. But this is better than the Afton Family Horcruxes, which literally takes hours to watch. I tried to shrink it down as close as I could. This is the pattern I keep talking about when I see the pieces fit together. The boxes look bisexual. That's weird. Well, gender identity seems to be a thing in FNAF, since Mangle is like both a he and a she. So, doesn't Funtime Foxy actually have the trans colors on her? On them? Sorry. Me being cisgender, it's easy for me to use pronouns when I don't want to. Okay. The bi-flag colors. I'm not an expert at these things. Okay. Let's do Funtime Foxy really quickly. Find the right file. Come on. That's the customized file. I don't want the customized file. I want the normal file. The two versions of sister location. Ah. Okay. Extras. Okay. All right, here is the bisexual flag, according to Wikipedia. So yeah, there's some purple, there's some pink, and there's some blue on her. Works for me. Well, people keep saying Scott has said various things, but you have to be careful about the artist's interpretations of things, like saying like the Pinky Pills picture, or saying like that is the purple guy. I believe that Henry, quote unquote, might actually be a negative version of William. Like in the puppet carver, you see the purple-faced owner of a small restaurant. Oh, my video's gone. Whatever. Purple-faced owner of a small restaurant. He has his remnant cut in half by the machine. Like, suddenly he's a 100% positive, wonderful person. But then the negative remnant that got cut out of him congeals into a pink humanoid form with dark eyes that looks for all the world like the pink guy we see in Taking to the Children and Foxy Go-Go. And touches him in the forehead, shows it's all of his negative memories, and then it goes and leaves, presumably to work for Fazbear Entertainment, stealing souls. And it's like that thing is Henry. That's the reason like the purple guy and the pink guy are the perfect opposite of each other. I love this is like my favorite image to show people. Like, here we go. Everyone says the pink guy is William, but then why is the modus operandi so different? William loves to lure people into back rooms. The magenta man, so some people hate the phrase the pink guy, stabs someone on the street outside Freddy's, ruining its reputation. As I covered earlier, William owned that place, so Taking to the Children was a losing proposition for William. The only person who gained anything from it was Henry, because it allowed Henry to buy out William's company later. So, like the Magenta Man is square, William's Salem Sprite is round, Magenta Man has dark eyes, William has light eyes, Magenta Man is like fat, William is thin, Magenta Man has no neck, William is a freaking giraffe, etc. These sprites are designed by the artist to be the perfect opposite of each other. In FNAF's minimalist style, there's no way to ignore this. This definitely means something. So if Scott said like that's the purple guy, well, Henry is a version of the purple guy, just like Sammy is a version of William, just a negative version. But you can still call them that, and it's not inaccurate. It's just not completely correct. So it's easy to get snagged on wording like that. All right, does anyone else have any questions? Sorry again for the early audio outage. Learn this as I go. I'll be shutting the stream down in a moment unless there are more questions. Who's currently on? Let's see. Gaijin Goomba is playing Doom. Let's go raid him. Okay, thanks, Dr. Shadow. Well, thanks all for showing up, listening to our debate about sometimes dry topics. FNAF is really interesting, it's complex. I've tried to show people more of the facets that I see. And but it looks like it's going to be a great year for FNAF. Lots of games are coming out. You have FNAF Plus, you have Ruin, you have the movie. I'm psyched. This is a good year. Maybe we'll finally get some answers. Let's hope. You what? Does Scott Cawthon just make an announcement? I'm pretty sure he's in... I'm not sure he ever actually retired, but that's a different story. But I'm glad he's back. Alright, let's raid Gaijin. Thanks for tuning into the stream. I'll try to make more of these. I will be streaming the new FNAF games when they come out, even though they scare the crap out of me. Have fun. Our debate continued on Discord. Spook cited the pillars and follow me as evidence the central dining hall could count as multiple rooms and work for the Foxy Go-Go location. Well, those partitions are definitely real. The lower middle room has no lighting and its tables are in shadow. If the pillars are just symbolic, the whole dining hall should have the same light. This, and the buttons in Freddy and Bonnie that don't appear in FNAF 1, indicate this is an entirely different opening of the FNAF 1 building. I theorize this place was actually Fredbear's family diner back in 1983 when the MCI happened. The sister location phone guy talks about where the multiple spring lock failures occurred, prompting him to retire all the classic springsuit characters Freddy's was using at the time, like Foxy. Only a springsuit can be both activated and worn, after all. I've linked my Google Doc on why FNAF 1 used to be Fredbear's in the text box below. It's all the more reason why the MCI must have happened during the first opening of the FNAF 2 building in summer 1983, since FNAF 1 Freddy's didn't exist as such at the time.